Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Ash, your host, and this is Meow Tavern. Today's video, we're gonna go over a webtoon that's been really popular for a while now, and I've had friends tell me to read it, and I actually finally went and read it. I absolutely enjoyed it, and I wanted to share a little bit of why it's really good or why I want you to check it out. The plan is to recap as much as I can. As usual, I have my notebook here. I've tried memorizing 90% of what is on here, but that is impossible because I always forget immediately. I like to call the first arc the bitter beginning. The first episode is episode 0, and this is like the preview that you get to read before you continue reading the story. But this is where we're introduced to our protagonist, Perry Shoddy, aka Perry. She's in a luxurious high-end ballroom, surrounded by a variety of guests. These guests are gossiping about Perry Shoddy's in-laws, the Lapillions. They're like a really powerful hotshot family that works, or many of the members have worked as the military or in the military for the imperial kingdom. So they're like a big deal in this particular kingdom. I was not able to catch the kingdom's name, like what country this kingdom is. But it's a kingdom, But yeah, one by one in this first chapter, the members of the family are introduced with their clinginess uh and over possessiveness over Parashati. You truly get to see how they kind of come off obsessed. First is her husband, then is her adopted child, followed by other members, right? Her sister-in-law, the uncle and doctor of the family, and his child. Then you get to see the head of the household, Gloria, appear as well, and they're all just surrounding her, fawning over her, and just being like, wow, she's so amazing. So that's our introduction to that particular series, right? So let's skip that and figure out how we got to that point, how Perry Shoddy got herself in that situation. And in order to do that, we're gonna have to take a few steps back and learn more about Parashati. Parashati is the daughter of a count living with her loving and caring stepmother, stepsister, and husband. And they are her only close family, is what we get to learn, especially after Perry's father dies. And her mother, like her biological mother, has passed away when she was like really little. So she's only got her stepmom, her stepsis, and her now husband, right? So they're her world. She cherishes them. She loves them. They don't show any indication of having any ill intention towards her. That is until one night when she is extremely ill. Her lover asks her to die. He had acquired a curse to use on Perry to kill her without being traced for it, and Perry's stepmother and stepsister are all in this plot. Actually, Perry's stepsister, Raina, I think is her name, is in a relationship with Schiff guy here. So it's fucking gross, but they basically encouraged him to get into a relationship with Perry so that he could then be into the family, could be invited into the family, he could win over Perry, marry her, and then now he would be able to, by marrying Perry, be considered a noble and maybe possibly inherit money if something were to happen to Perry, right? So it's all about the property and the money and getting that from Perry to the stepmom, stepsis, and this little fuck boy. After this bombshell of a discovery, Perry's mother takes a pillow and suffocates Perry to death. And Perry does die, but instead of staying dead, she ends up being reincarnated to a earlier point in her life. I think before she even got married to Schiff, whatever his name is, but it's before she got married to him, and all that, illusion of, yeah, they're a great family, and her getting murdered happened. So a year or so prior to that whole thing happening. At first, she thought it was a dream, but very quickly she starts realizing how she was back, and they do end up betraying her trust because she loved them from the bottom of her heart. She did not care. Her mother was a stepmother and, all that stuff. And she just is in huge shock from that whole thing. And she knows that they're going to come for her and kill her if she doesn't do anything about it. And in order to protect herself, she, first of all, rejects Schiff and his proposal. It's like, nope, my guy, I'm sorry, not into you, and starts figuring out a way to keep herself safe while getting her revenge against them. She also remembers Shiv saying that there was some sort of curse he had obtained, so she's trying to figure out what curse was placed on her and if that curse was the reason why she started growing ill, and then that's how they were able to, get her in that position and kill her. So she needs to figure out what this curse is. And two, she needs to figure out how to keep her family away from her. In order to seek protection, she starts kind of brainstorming, and she's like, you know what? I know who is the most scariest person that might keep these guys off my back. She remembers everything that's happened during this time, so she has all her memories of all the events that happened before her death. So she can maybe try and use some of that information as leverage, which she tries to do when she approaches the Duke of uh I don't know what country this is. So the Grand Duke Thurdio Lepillion, but I call him Theo. So Theo, who is a bloodthirsty war fiend, and has a bad rep. Plus, his first wife left him after 2 months, mainly because he never talked to her and he never touched her once. So she got a settlement and dipped. She's trying to be like, hey, instead of getting married to, I know that the Imperial King is going to try and get you to marry his youngest daughter, the seventh princess. The seventh Imperial Princess, a little brat kid. And even though, Theo doesn't want to get married, he kind of, in that situation in the past, had to. So she's like, hey, you don't have to get married to that kid if you get into a contract marriage with me. You can keep me safe from my family. And yeah, how about it? It's a win-win. And he's not having any of it and is about to walk away when Perry reaches out and grabs his hand. And without even thinking, Theo snatches his hand away from Perry aggressively, cutting his finger against Perry's ring, causing a bit of his blood to spill. He wants her gone, but Perry's trying her best, giving it her all to try and convince him that, hey, let's make this work. Please try and make this work, please. But, she's giving him an out, but he's not listening. She's like freaking out. She's anxious like crazy. Anxiety's taking over her. She's very worried, and she starts biting on her thumb and her fingernails. She's a biter. She likes to chew on her nails when she's nervous and anxious. And that's what she's doing. But guess what? Theodore's blood had dripped around her, fingers because he cut his finger on it on her ring. And so she ends up biting on the nails. Keep that in mind. Blood on fingernail. She's chewing it. So once Theo thinks it's over and that she's given up, he starts heading out. Then he hears a thud, and that's because Perry fell to the floor. And he freaks out and is rushing over her. Perry, well, she died. She has once again died, and now she's being buried. A pair of dudes just shoving, soil down in that grave, and they freak out because she wakes up, and they're like, oh my god. They run to grab Theo and his guards, and Theo's interested, right? The whole ordeal fascinates Theo. And he has Perry escorted back to his manor where, they're talking. She's like, whoa, that freaked me out. And then he just kind of like cuts his hand and shoves it in her mouth to test his theory. Uh, she experiences a painful death once again and wakes up this time to a room on a bed in a manor. And she's freaking out when she sees Theo. She's like, I'm sorry, we don't have to do this contract. My bad, G. Like, calm down. Don't stop trying to keep killing me over and over again. Long story short, this psycho intentionally killed her just so he could figure out if she does have a resistance or some sort of immunity to his family's curse. The Lepillions, I think it's called Lepillions. That's how I'm pronouncing it, so. The Lepillions are a cursed family. Their blood is poison. And right now, the family has no idea how this curse works and exactly what they can do about it. There's very few of them. And there's even like a weird thing that's happened in the family where the current household head Gloria and her brother, they did inbreeding. I don't know all the details, but family is cursed and there's a lot of mystery behind the blood. But now Theo feels as if by maybe some sort of experimentation or maybe just taking blood samples from Perry, they could try and figure out why she's immune to their blood, and if they can, like, once they crack that, maybe they'll be able to figure out some sort of cure for their cursed blood. Because it's caused a lot of pain in their family, and it's not ideal because it just makes them, they're kind of isolated from the rest of the world for this reason. A lot of people just think that they're a very private, secretive family for no reason, but this is the reason. They're private and secretive because their blood is dangerous. So, the deal is the deal. Perry will let them experiment on her. She will give blood samples in exchange for the marriage contract that she was proposing to Theo earlier. He has finally accepted it. Ta-da! With that, they are finally going to get into a fake marriage. They do actually legitimately get married, but they're gonna divorce after a year is the plan. Why a year? Why does Perry need a year of protection from her family? I don't know. Maybe she thinks that that's enough time to be able to figure out a permanent plan to keep them off her back, which she does with some of them. So, with all of that out of the way, our protagonist continues on her journey to gain revenge on her family and her ex-lover. She starts by kicking her mother, Lillian, and stepsister Reina. I keep wanting to say Reina. Is it Reina? Along with Schiff out of the family manor, requesting her uncle to oversee the place for a whole year. So they're kicked out. They're not homeless, but they're not in her family's or her father's manor anymore. It was a very hard decision. She didn't really want to kick them out, but she didn't want to believe that they would betray her, but she did experience that. She did get, cursed, became severely ill, and then eventually killed off by the people that she thought her only hype men, her only, the only people looking out for her, but they weren't, and it just completely clouds his character. On top of having trust issues, I feel like Perry starts having like an outsider syndrome type of situation going on where she feels like she doesn't belong because she didn't belong in her family, right? She starts applying that with her in-laws as well. Once they start getting closer, she has a really hard time accepting their kindness, their worry. She just keeps thinking like, oh, it's because I'm an outsider, I don't belong here, I shouldn't, and all that. They start falling in love with her, but she just kind of doesn't acknowledge that for a really long time. As for her family, at first I thought her stepmother was maybe like a very abusive person. I thought maybe she had always treated Perry like Cinderella. But when you're reading the comic and as you go through each chapter and the more flashbacks that are revealed to us, the more we learn that actually Perry's stepmom took care of her and loved her and cherished her. And the stepsister also treated her like family. They were never treated differently at all. Perry was treated just like the stepsister was. So it is kind of shocking. The relationship between Perry and Lillian was very loving and caring. And I can slowly start understanding why Perry was in denial for a hot minute about the stepmom betraying her. Because why? The stepmom had been taking care of her since she was a kid, since forever. And so it's just something that doesn't make sense. And Perry just can't understand why the stepmom just changed. Did she change? Did she ever love her? Had she always planned on killing, her off once her father died? And later in the story, we do learn, spoiler alert, that the stepmother, Lillian, did have a hand in, well, Perry's father's death. So, was that her plan all along, to kill Perry's father and then eventually to kill Perry and take over all the money in the family? That's a lot of commitment. So, it boggles her mind. And, I really liked that little touch. I also liked that Lillian isn't 100% evil. She also, most of the characters that get introduced are morally gray. this particular webtoon does a really good job of presenting to you morally gray characters. You can't 100%, well, at least I couldn't 100% hate some of these characters because I'm like, it's complicated, it's complicated. By the 5th chapter, Theo and Perry are married and they're exiting the courthouse when they run into the 4th princess, Dodolia Castro, who is obsessed with Theo, okay? She's very dangerous and she has even attempted to, or has successfully, not 100% confirmed, essayed Theo. And it's not 100% confirmed, but in season 2, it's seeming to be that way because Theo is kind of scared of intimacy. He can handle kissing, I think, but he cannot. Other things scare him. So when they're exiting the courthouse before, like a split second before the 4th princess is introduced, Perry asks a very ballsy question that kind of offends Theo, but she asks because she's curious if the curse that Skiff uses on her it's the blood, it's their family blood. So she's like, hey, by chance, perchance, does your family sell the blood on the side? And he gets so upset. He's like, how dare you ask that question, you insolent little brat. No, yeah. He gets really mad because he's like, we would never. And they have descendants that are not a part of the main family, that are part of the branch family. And those guys also have cursed bloods. And she's like, hey, you never know, one of these guys could. And he's like, no, shut up. How dare you? This is important because she's kind of right on the money because this ends up being a part of an arc, like 2-3 arcs away. This is like, she's just right. Some shady shit is happening with the blood. After the uncomfortable interaction with the 4th princess, and Perry realizing like, holy shit, like the 4th princess really wanted to get married to Theo and I kind of snagged him before she could. Awkward. They head to the main grand capital house, the manor. I keep wanting to say dukedom, but that's a different house. This is like the Lapelion. This is the Lapelion capital manor. So they have houses in different parts of the country. So they're heading there. And at that manor, her ex is there, riling up a storm, just yapping away, causing a scene. And Theo's adoptive son, Selfie, is there too. Selfius is the name, I think. He is barking back at Skiff, telling him to skedaddle, stop trying to cause a scene. And he kind of ignores him because he's a little kid and walks right past him, yelling out, oh, where's Sasha? I need to talk to Sasha. Sasha is Perry, which kind of confused me at first, but yeah, Sasha is Perry. And so he's trying so desperately to get Perry back because without Perry, without being married to her, he's not a noble and therefore he can't really enter the knighthood. So he's screwed and he takes it very personally and he's just yelling out for her. Selfie gets really irritated because he's like, who the fuck is this guy? And is he insulting my family? And so he grabs a sword and tries to lunge at the Skiff guy. But before he can, Theo grabs his wrist and stops him. I like to call this arc Trust Fall with Selfie. So this is the arc where Selfie and Perry are bonding and become closer to each other. So Theo has the guards take Skiff away and tells them, like, take him away, drag him away. And he starts scolding Selfie for all that. And, Selfie's just 9 years old, so he's just like really grumpy and upset. And he refuses to have dinner and stays locked in the room, right? So, but he absolutely adores Theo. He loves Theo. He loves his dad, and Theo loves him too, but he just shows his affection in the most stupidest way ever. He is a stereotypical cold-hearted, I don't want to use the word tsundere because I hate cold-hearted tsundere trope, but this one is well written. Selfie usually lives in the countryside and he isn't really allowed in the capital. Because of that, I think he wonders if Theo even likes him, which he does, It's just that Theo is doing that for Selfie's own protection. Selfie, his blood is extremely toxic compared to the rest of the members of their family, just like his father's, like his biological father's blood was. Oh, I should mention before I forget, Selfie's biological father is Theo's older brother. So, and Selfie's mom They're trying to at first kind of frame it as she abandoned him, but from what I can tell, she was forced to give him up. So there's some mystery behind that and what was going on. So I forgot to mention, but in the carriage ride back to the manor, we're also introduced to Theo's older sister, this redhead character, Cyrus, Cyrus. But yeah, this particular character comes in and out here and there. I don't want to focus on her too much because I just want to talk about the main characters. And right now we're going to be talking about Selfie. So after Perry excuses herself from dinner, she's going upstairs and she runs into a maid who is trying to deliver food to Selfie, but he's kind of being a rat. And she's like, hey, let me do it. And so she knocks and barges in, and he's like, who's there? Get out of here, blah, blah, blah. And he's kind of just being a little crazy, crazy little kid, bratty as heck. He's just a little scared cat, scared little cat hissing. That's how I like to look at a Selfie as, because he's just 9 years old. He's a kid, and he thinks everybody fucking hates him. And, he just wants to get on Theo's good side, and he just doesn't know how to. His family has huge communication problems. But yeah, Selfie is worried that Perry is using Theo for power or something, and maybe he's trying to get close to Selfie to get closer to Theo. Because keep in mind, Theo has been married once in the past, and his ex-wife just left after, was it 2 months or 3 months? Yeah. So Selfie's cautious, scared little kitten. But Perry enters, sits next to him. It's like, hey, you want some food? And notices that, this little baby's been crying. And she reaches out to comfort him to only be dragged away from from the room and pushed out, right? He wants to shut her out. He's like, "Bye, don't try and get close to me. Don't show comfort. This is not comfortable for me. This is unknown territory because not a lot of people show him affection. His maids are just maids. He doesn't really have a more loving and hugging family member, so he's just on guard when someone does show affection, and in this case Perry, right? So Perry returns to her chamber only to be reminded that it's their wedding night and that the staff have prepared their chamber for the consummation. They can't give away that their marriage is a fake marriage, so they have to share the bed and the room together for the night. And so they decide to put pillows in the middle, right? There are a lot of funny, cute moments, and their love story, Theo and Perry, is a very slow burn. This is just like what, episode 5 or chapter 5, chapter 6. Yeah, they don't confessions don't start happening till like chapter 98 or 100. So, yeah. And that's season 2. Season 1 is chapter 0 to 75. So, that's why I thought this was such it was just so unexpected, because I thought, because of the name, my in-laws are obsessed with me, that this is just gonna be like her in-laws are either giving her a hard time, or it's just gonna be like a really fun, wholesome, comic where you get to see how this girl has married into a family and they're slowly, getting close to the family. I wasn't expecting there to be all this other stuff and the romance part of it being kind of like in the back burner. So she is going to get closer to the family, but not because of the romance or because of the marriage, but because of her as a person helping them out. So they're falling in love with her as a person, and less to do with her being married into the family. So that's a really good thing, or like a cool thing about it that I enjoyed. But hey, everyone's different. Maybe you'll find this shit boring. So Perry has a really hard time sleeping. She's kind of having nightmares of her family's betrayal, and she kind of starts crying, which, Theo makes a note of. So Selfie wants to stay at the capital and live with Theo and Perry and attend school. And Theo is heavily against this, right? So there's that one tension. And two, Selfie ends up getting ill. So the Lapillion family goes through these purging moments, purging sickness, I call it purging sickness, but the only reason I call it that is because when they get extremely sick or when they're weak, their blood starts attacking them. And because their blood is toxic, it starts affecting them. And so they start purging large amounts of blood everywhere. This happens and goes on for like a week sometimes. It's not a cool thing, it's not fun. And I think if an adult purges um, more than 3 times, they die. It's a really shitty thing that the family kind of has no control over. And that's also another reason why they're hoping to find answers through Perry's blood and figure out why she's immune to it so that they can apply that to themselves. Selfie in particular, his blood is extra toxic. And so the country house was just like a good way of keeping him safe. If they're in the capital and he's going to school, there's a lot more risk to it, right? Selfie, he's upset because Theo won't let him stay, and he's throwing another temper tantrum, and he locks himself in the room. He's under the covers. He's upset, and Perry's like, you know what? I'll go check it out. She tells all the other staff to go, and she, goes to check up on him. And when she enters the room to check up on him, he throws like a jewelry box, which like hits her head and causes blood to come out. But she's unfazed by it. He doesn't even realize that he's hit her, and she approaches him and is like, hey, everything's fine. I'll talk to Theo. I'll try and make him, understand so that you can stay in the capital. And he's just being hissy, angry little cat, right? But then he notices, well, two things happen. One, Perry notices that he's bleeding because he harms himself. He harms his hand when he's upset. And two, he notices that she's bleeding because of him. So the two of them kind of have a moment where they finally calm down, and Perry is able to bandage the hand that was bleeding where he hurt himself. And like I said, she's trying to win him over, but she's also being honest. She does want to try and help him stay. She's like, hey, let's be friends. I'll help you with this. You can stay and go to school. I got your back. She tries to comfort him again, and, Selfie tries to create more distance between the two of them, and he tries backing away. But like I said, he notices that she's bleeding, and he's like, oh man, I did that, didn't I? The hand that isn't bandaged, he kind of like uses his thumb to like wipe off the blood off her forehead, and he's really apologetic that he hurt her. He begs her not to tell Theo, and that, could she keep this between the two of them? Him tossing the jewelry box and hurting her. And she's like, don't worry about it, kid. It's between the two of us. Perry realizes very quickly, because she starts feeling a certain way, that, oh my gosh, this kid, it's not only his hand that's bandaged that's bleeding, his other hand is bleeding too. So when he used his thumb to wipe her forehead, his blood mixed in with hers, and she is dying once again. I swear this girl can't catch a break, but yeah. And she's trying her best to leave the room so that she doesn't pass out in front of him because she doesn't want to traumatize him. And unfortunately for her, she's not able to successfully leave the room and does die. Her lifeless body drops in front of this child. When Perry wakes up, Theo is there scolding Selfie, and look at Selfie just bawling out. He's crying. Look at this little baby. Once Perry convinces Theo to let Selfie stay and attend school, Perry and Selfie end up bonding even more. At first, she's like, yeah, I'm your friend. Let's be friends. They're friends, right? But more things happen. There's a couple more like mini side plots that happen. There's when Selfie starts going to school, he starts getting bullied. And when I think Perry starts hosting little balls, when one of the families, or I think it was like 3 boys in total who were a part of the bully group, when their families attend the ball and Perry finds out through the little boys' mouths that they're bullying Selfie, she stands up for Selfie and kind of scolds the parents. And then Theo finds out, that these boys are picking on his son. And so they all get mad and the parents get in huge trouble. I think their titles get stripped. Oh, another thing I want to mention is they're kind of hardcore with the punishments in this webtoon, like hardcore. So there's a side story that happens where Perry gets attacked by her ex and a bunch of other thugs, and her ex is executed. Theo executes him, so he's he's dead. So, yeah, they're pretty hardcore in this with the punishments. They take away people's money, property, land. Out. You do not want to mess with the Lapillions. I would never, because you breathe in the wrong direction. I feel bad for a lot of the servants and maids in this story, because a lot of the times they'll just be following orders and they'll be executed to death for something that a bad guy character made them do. And I'm like, they didn't know what they were getting themselves into. It fucking sucks. But anyway, back to what I was saying. That whole arc happens, and because of that arc, Selphie and Perry get even stronger. And there's like a moment where the fourth princess is confronting Perry, and is like, "Hey, are you willing to take the consequences of your actions? Are you willing to be Selphie's mom?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be his mom." And Selphie overhears that, and the two of them have a talk. I think it's on the school campus when she comes to pick him up. When that conversation happens, Selphie is ecstatic. He would love for Perry to be his mom, and asks him for her permission to call him mom. And from there onward, she's mom, which throws Theo off because, Theo's like, what? He just called you mom. So it's adorable. He eventually, Selphie, tries to plot uh, getting Theo and Perry together. He wants to do Operation Make Dad and Mom and Dad forever. And make Perry stay past her contract, because they do tell him about the contract. That's another thing that I liked, was that they were kind of pretty transparent with the kids about Theo being in a fake marriage or in a contract marriage with Perry. So that was kind of cool. He is so precious, and I absolutely enjoyed reading this arc, seeing Selphie being introduced and how him and Perry got closer. It's just fun. It's like, for me, this arc was like Spy Family. So, what's Perry's connection to the Lapillion family's blood? Well, after some of Perry's blood was collected for sampling, we learned through the family doctor and Theo's uncle, Phineas, that Perry's blood is regular. It's just like every other person's blood. There's nothing special about it. So, they're back to square one. Around this time, Perry starts insisting that the curse that was put on her must have been the blood. Like, the blood must have been used. Like, her family might have been microdosing her with the cursed blood. And that it's not like a magic spell, but the blood, the Lepellian blood. It has to be out somewhere. Someone must be smuggling it. Someone must be making money off it. You know, um, Everyone in the family is kind of offended by it. Gloria, especially the head of the household. And I think she threatens, this is before she warms up to Perry, but she warns her. She's like, if you're fucking wrong, you batch. But Theo, even though he's offended, decides to look into it, decides to track down all of their family members, because they expect every family member to report a birth in the family, but Perry's like, someone can easily just lie. And she's right. Theo starts looking into the Branch family, trying to figure out if there is someone else smuggling their blood for money and kind of causing this issue. And through this, because it's a long arc, and I'm like heavily butchering it, but they do end up finding a child. Okay, it belonged to someone named Gen. So a guy named Gen in the family, and he had a daughter that no one knew about. He's also a doctor. No one knew about his illegitimate daughter, but he has one. Islet? I think is her name. Islet? Tell me, people, is let is that's how I'm pronouncing it. Or is it Islet? Islet, kind of like Islet? Islet? I'm gonna say Islet because it sounds like piglet. So it's like a little small little baby, because that's what she is. She is really young. I think she's 5. I could be wrong. She is a precious little baby whose father is abusive. So he hits her, all the bad shit, draws out her blood like crazy, and sells it out to anyone for money, right? Because it's poison blood. So the poor baby is really scared, super scared of the family red eyes, does not trust anyone who has it. So Selfie comes up with the plan of wearing bunny mask, and everyone, when they're like trying to do a family welcome dinner for her, wears mask, and around this time, Theo starts warming up to Perry, and because he admits to himself and admits to her that he was wrong, and that if she hadn't press the family to find if someone in their family is selling the blood, they would have never found this kid and would not have been able to help her out. And so he's really grateful, and he starts kind of warming up to her, smiling to her. Yeah, so he falls in love with her first, so we see more of his expressions in the comic a lot. But yeah, long story short, Phineas, the family doctor, ends up adopting the small bean, Islet. Phineas is pretty worried about Perry's immunity, and he wonders that if each time she dies, which he does end up eventually because she does die one more time, he starts timing it, and he starts trying to figure out, like, okay, what's going on. He thinks that each time she dies, it takes her longer to reincarnate, wake up. And that not only does it take longer for her to wake up, but her immunity might decrease over time to their blood. And that she, even though she's immune to it for now, that she needs to be very careful because she might actually permanently die one day and not reincarnate. This curse, it's so unknown, and it's intertwined with magic for sure, because they're suspecting that maybe there's some supernatural element involved, because that's what Perry says. She feels like there's some supernatural element involved in this. But anyway, there's a bunch of cute arcs. um Theo and Perry start attending so many different balls to make public appearances, and the outfits are amazing in this comic. Oh my gosh, they're so beautiful. It looks gorgeous. The dresses that Perry wears, beautiful. But yeah, let's skip to when Theo starts overworking towards the end of season 1 and gets sick. So, only male members of the family can spread the curse onto their children, and if the family had named a woman as the head of the house, the curse would have stopped. They didn't, and that's why it's still around. And the current head of the household is not really the current head. She's more like Gloria, that is. Her husband was the head of the household. Theo is technically the new head of the household. He took over, so it was either him or his older sister, but his older sister was going through shit. So the family also rarely lets the woman who marries into the family know about their blood curse, which is bad because most of these women die during childbirth, okay, due to the toxic blood of their children. The members of the family, like I said, when they grow weak or sick, the poison blood starts impacting them. And during these sick days, they have purging, right? So, Sayoris? I don't know how to pronounce her name to this day. Sayo. Let's call her Sayo. Sayo, the older sister, has sad lore. So basically, her blood killed her kid and her husband. A small paper cut was all it took to take their lives. Like, that loss is the reason why she was going through a lot. She was in mourning, and so she couldn't take on the role of being the head of the household. And that responsibility was pushed onto Theo. And Phineas didn't want any of that as well. But around the end of season 1, the Imperial King has Theo working overtime and is constantly having him do who the frick knows, all sorts of shenanigan. It's bad to the point where he gets super sick, and when he comes back home, he is purging. And Perry and Back's son, I think is Daniel, is his name, move a table to the bedroom so that they can help Theo with accounting and whatnot, and he can like guide them on what to do and what not to do, because he was too weak to do his own work, and they were like, yeah, no, you're not getting out of bed, okay, sir. So Perry ends up finding some interior design documents that causes Theo to fluster up, and he snatches them away, right? It's a new home design for Perry, maybe. It's cute. Around this time, he also starts going on walks with her, staring at her when she's not looking. When Theo's feeling better, Selfie drags Perry and Theo to his friend's house to hang out, and they do like a cute family thing. By the end of season 1, Izette and Phineas head to the main manor, which is in a winter wonderland, the Grand Dukedom. I think that's what it's called. And we, the audience, get a confirmation of the Duke's feelings for Parashati after she rushes up to Theo to ask him if he'll go to her friend's wedding with her. And she's looking super cute. Her outfit is gorgeous, and he's blushing like crazy. Even Daniel notices his blush and is like, whoa, is he falling for her? Perry asks him for some sort of jewelry or something that can kind of help convince people that they're so in love, and he presents her with a ring. By the end of season 1, Perry starts noticing his softer smile and gaze towards her at her friend's wedding, and she's like, huh, noted. In season 2, Reina, the stepsister, is working for the Fort Princess as her lady in waiting, I think, or as a maid. I think it's a lady in waiting. Phineas is able to talk with Perry, and they agree on the period of exception, which is this right here. It's like a little line to establish events and how they perceive things turned out for people that have been reincarnated. So people exposed to the poison blood all died and got reincarnated at the early springtime. Poison doesn't work on them anymore, and they have memories of the past. Oh, right, I didn't mention this, but the fourth princess also remembers the past and was reincarnated as well. So she originally was a very, very weak, bedridden, not even bedridden, I think she needed a wheelchair most of the time to get around, but she was very sick and she overcame it. And yeah, when she overcame it and got reincarnated, she created a cult so she can do magic. And in the past, she had once given Perry a letter with a weird letter with some sort of curse symbol, I assume. But yeah, she can do magic. And her magic might be tied in to the Lapillion blood curse, and they might be like intertwined. And the reincarnation curse that's happening might be tied into whatever the fourth princess her magic did. But we're starting to figure out that maybe the fourth princess isn't herself anymore, and that maybe she's someone else, or someone else has taken over her. But there's a lot of mystery around her magic and her cult and how everything came to be, which is really interesting. I'm not sure which arc to focus on, which one to tell you first, but there's like a quick hunting arc that the fourth princess and the third prince had hosted and organized, and somehow a fire starts in a tent where Parashati was in, and seeing the smoke, Theo rushes back, finding her kind of almost dying, and she does die in his arms, right? And the doctors are kind of scrambling to try and find medicine and whatnot. And Parashati in particular, she the tent fell on her and she was smooshed by it, and obviously everyone came and helped her. But she wasn't dying because the tent fell on her. She was dying because the fourth princess had given her butler servant person a medicine elixir and told him to give the doctors that it might help. But what the servant guy probably didn't know was that it was mixed with some of the Lapillion family's blood. So that medicine was laced with cursed blood, and that's what caused Perry to die again in Theo's arms. And he goes crazy, he goes berserk, he causes a scene, he starts fighting everybody. He tortures the servant boy and has him executed. And it's so sad because the servant boy's like, I used to look up to you and yada 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 in his mind, and now he's going to die. I hate the punishment that some of the people go through in this, because I'm like, they didn't know. They're poor. They're just trying to get paid. But anyway, I think the scenes like this are established to really show you how morally gray Theo really is. Later, after all of that, Theo and Perry get into an argument over communication issues. Theo is upset that Perry won't confide in him, and is upset that he keeps hearing about Perry's business adventures through other people. Other people will bring up, like, oh, I heard Perry's doing this. And he's like, oh, I didn't know. And he's upset and he's like, I'm your husband. Why aren't you telling me all these things? And she starts kind of crying, and then it's kind of awkward between the two of them. This creates a little rift, and yeah, he starts ignoring her. But only pays attention to her when she's cold and whatnot, and puts a blanket on top of her, and that confuses her because she's like, what the frick, like, I thought you were ignoring me. All of this silly squabble comes to an end after Perry gets a bit drunk, while the whole gang, they're traveling to the winter kingdom. They're migrating there for the winter to the Grand Dukedom, right? All of them are going, and during this trip is where Theo decides to ignore her. And so she gets a little bit drunk with the gang. She has like 2 drinks, and then she barges in to the room and is like, hey. And she locks it and is like, you're not ignoring me today. We're gonna freaking talk, Mr. Grumpy. They talk it out. Perry cries. They make up, and she's like, hey, let's drink. And they get drunk, and she passes out. And she's super embarrassed when she wakes up in the morning, and she's like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I kind of caused the scene. But yeah, once at the Grand Dukedom, Perry finds herself slipping into boredom, sulky mood. you know, her business venture isn't really successful. She doesn't know what to do with it. But Theo helps. Theo helps find, how to repurpose the things that they've made. She's made holy items, but those items get turned into screws and whatnot for construction. Hey, at least she's going to be able to make money, right? So instead of having nobles as her client, she'll be able to have merchants and regular folks. And I think that's a win, but she's still sulky and in a bad mood. And that whole like worrying, sulky mood ends up worrying Theo. And, she's also overthinking about how the contract's coming to an end soon, and she's not sure what to do. Not to mention, every time she wants to go out and explore the town and kind of like asks him, hey, let's go on a date, Theo is kind of busy and is being pulled to the side. And so she's pretty sad about that. She's like, damn. What do I do? And she finds herself thinking about Theo, missing Theo. She's noticing his smile and whatnot and cheerful attitude around her, and it's messing with her, sending mixed signals, and she's not sure what she should do, if she's even allowed to feel these emotions. At the Grand Dukedom, she meets this other family doctor, Mia. Mia's kind of a bitch to her. There's a situation where Phineas ends up purging, and I think this is his third or fourth. It's like third purge, and that means that he could possibly die. And I skipped over this arc in season 1, but there was like a bombing at one of the balls that Perry went to while Theo was super busy hanging out and constantly overworking at the Imperial Palace, right? During that time, in order to kill time and kill her boredom, Perry was going to balls, and one of the balls she went to, there was like a bombing that happened, and she, along with other guests, were kidnapped by the fourth princess, and the fourth princess was basically trying to kill her. A whole bunch of shit happens. They find people from another country trapped in this underground cellar, and then they have to like break free. It's a whole thing. And my camera's dying, so I'll be right back. So yeah, they try and escape from this underground cellar that the fourth princess had, with her cult, and there's people from another country that are getting tortured. This other bullcrap is happening, and there's this blonde guy character that I didn't really talk about. He's mysterious as well, but he doesn't show up a lot. That's why I didn't mention him that much. But he says he's a journalist, but he might be someone who's trying to fight the good fight and is for the people, regardless of which country you belong to. So I like him, but I'm not going to talk about him that much. But basically, when they make a break from that area, when they escape that area, the prisoners of that cell, they had these strange anklet like cuffs. And so Perry has that, and it's got weird markings on it. And at this point, she didn't know much about these cuffs. No one was able to remove them except her. So she thinks that people who were able to travel back in time are the only ones that can remove those cuffs off people. So they're magical. And so she's like, what does the cuff have to do with her? And does it have to do with the blood? Is it because the cuffs are cursed, could it cancel out another curse? Is her theory. So basically, when Phineas is going through his third purge, it's like a very intense arc. Theo is not willing to risk Phineas dying. He loves his uncle, and it's like a very stressful arc. A long story short, Phineas is kind of coughing up blood and dying in front of Perry, and she kind of panics and puts the anklet cuff on him because she's hoping that it will cancel out, and her theory is correct. And luckily for her, and luckily for Phineas, yes, he's still alive, and that canceled out the curse. So this is one good, step towards figuring out the curse. But if it backfired, Theo would have freaking hated her. But this whole arc is the reason why Theo starts liking her even more, and he feels guilty and is ashamed and sad. And he's not really ignoring her, but he feels like, man, I like doubted her, and I'm kind of afraid of her being disappointed in me, not trusting her, and all this stuff. He's overthinking too. So he's not spending a lot of time with her, right? Like I said earlier, she's like, which is Perry. All of this happens later. Like all of this happens first, and then her overthinking starts to grow even more. And during this time, she's thinking about all the crazy things that have happened, the family, the doctor Mia, because Mia's being a bitch to her, the curse, the cuffs. She's thinking about how Theo is so busy, blew her off from their date. They were supposed to go on a date. He couldn't make it. And she's like, she's upset. And so she goes out with the guards to search for herbs, and she's kind of whacking underneath a tree trying to like dig for an herb, and she's overthinking as well, and she slips because it was on a hill and she didn't realize that, and she's just laying flat staring up at the beautiful sky as the snow is falling, and she's like, man, why does he recoil? So she's thinking about how Theo closes himself from her and doesn't let her in and hides, and how she just doesn't know how to reach him, and she's just thinking about all these things. And when she turns her head to the side, she notices a very frantic Theo running and panicking towards her because he thinks that she's hurt herself and can't get back up. And it's just adorable. It's snowing like crazy, and so the two take shelter at a family like cabin nearby. And what she doesn't realize is that Theo had been hoping to be able to spend some alone time with her, and this cabin was something that he had actually picked out earlier. He just kind of didn't get around to having her come over, or he didn't know how to execute hanging out with her, and he just found the perfect excuse to have her chill out with him. He had missed her and wanted to make up for missing the walks and exploring the town, right? They hang up their wet coats and sit in front of a boiling pot. Perry has a hot beverage in her hand, and bit by bit, the two start opening up to each other. Theo expresses to her that he didn't want to disappoint her. He's, overthinking things. Perry is kind of shocked hearing all these things. He was worried about opening up to her and not trusting her, and he was afraid to directly talk to her about these things. And she kind of reassures him that she wouldn't be disappointed, and that she understands that his family was in danger. Phineas, right? Dying. And that she wouldn't have been disappointed in him. She gets it. She just wishes that he would talk to her more. And she just kind of starts going off about how she wants to be able to be there for him. And she ends up kind of spilling the beans on how she was thinking about him and she missed him. And the two end up blushing. It's kind of awkward. So she chugs her hot drink and starts kind of choking on it. There's this really awkward interaction. And she's like, oh, I just kind of need to maybe go out and figure this out. Like she wants to step outside for a bit. And he like pushes her down and is like, no, I'll go out. You can be in here, And she's like, what the hell, man? Perry gets kind of frustrated by Theo and his need to constantly hide. And so she kind of follows him out. She opens the door and looks at him, and he's just there blushing super red, and they have like a quick moment where they stare at each other, and then Perry kind of just runs over and embraces him. The two kind of start opening up about their feelings. They both can hear each other's hearts beating super fast. In the morning, Theo does her hairdo, and the two go to the nearby villages and explore the area. A lot of people don't know who they are, and that's fine. They blend in and they just get to explore, be regular people, get dorky moments. When they return back to the kingdom, they stop sleeping with the pillows in between them and eventually have their first kiss around chapter 100 or something like that. In chapter 97, Parashadi does try and initiate. Like, she says she wants to kiss him, and he kind of freezes and freaks out, and he starts overthinking about how there might be a cut in his lip, and he's worried that he might kill her again and all this other stuff. And Perry's like, damn, I just got rejected. He does not want my ass. But yeah, the two take things super slowly. They eventually do kiss, and eventually they get caught making out by the family, who, like, there's like a big shock. They're like, oh shit, y'all are actually together, which they're happy about. But then they're like, oh wow. Eventually Selfie finds out and he's like, I freaking was trying to do this from the get-go. I just want it to be known that I wanted this to happen, because he was trying to get them to get together. And he's super excited and happy because he's like, oh, do you get to stay forever? And she's like, yeah, I do. I do get to stay. Maybe not forever, but for now, they're getting along. But so far, whenever Perry tries to initiate something more, uh Theo kind of flinches and freaks out, and he doesn't mean it, but he has trauma from the fourth princess. So I think we're gonna learn more about that. But that's it. That's my hyper summarization. I butchered some of the parts that are kind of important, but I feel like it's okay. It's fine. We're here for the main characters and for Selfie. So yeah, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are. Have you read My In-Laws Are Obsessed with Me, or has this video kind of piqued your interest to maybe go and check it out? If you're looking for a good thing to read, that is in the romance genre, by the way. This is no action, my friend. But yeah, because I mainly talk about romance on this channel. Let me know if you would like for me to diversify the things I talk about. But I feel like most of us are here for um the goofy the goofy romances or the heart-wrenching slice of life. I loved the characters. I loved how they were written. I love that almost every other character has the good, like, pros and cons, right? Because that's how we are in real life. Like, I have flaws, I have bad qualities and traits too, but I also have good ones, right? We have that. We're a balance of all those things. Were imperfect. And so that's what I liked that a lot of these characters had, was they were imperfect. And I never found myself being in a situation while reading this comment and going in my head like, this comic sucks. I never had that moment. For the revenge arc for this webtoon, what I really liked was how immediate it was. Like, chapter 4 is when she starts kicking them out of the manor. A few chapters later, the ex is executed. Only the mom and the stepsister stay. The next webtoon, if I ever do talk about one, might be Nevermore. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Mia Tavern out. Bye bye.